The ATHX Games gets bigger and bigger every year, with competitions now in the USA, in Europe and in the UK. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you the best way for you to prepare and for you to train for the 2026 season. If you're new here, my name's Charlie. Last year, I competed in the finals for the ATHX Pro, and we came 9th. So in this video, I'm going to teach you everything I've learned. So I'm going to outline what you need to do for the next 12 weeks. Say you've got the competition in 12 weeks, or not even just in 12 weeks. I'm going to break this down into 4-week cycles so you can join in wherever you are. I'm going to give you an overview of what you're trying to get out of the programming and just my best advice to try and get you there. I'm going to give you advice as if I was doing it. I'm going to give you advice as if my clients were doing it. And I'm going to break down a structure for you to be able to follow. We're going to split things down into 3 simple components, which is the strength components. We're going to break things down into the endurance, and we're going to break things down into the METCON. And when we program it, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to program it in a way which allows you to focus on the strength components in one part, running and the endurance components in another, and focus on the METCON in a different part of the workout itself. Why do we break things down into strength first? And why do when I write a program, do I write the strength components first? The reason is I come from a powerlifting background. So last year, or at the start of this year in January, I competed in a powerlifting competition. I was 93 kilos at that competition. I came first. I squatted 240 kilos. I bench pressed 145 kilos. I deadlifted 260 kilos. So whenever we go to program strength work, we want to follow a very similar rules that we would use for powerlifting. And that is that when you start a program, you want to use more reps, more volume, lighter loads, and then as the program progresses, we're going to decrease the number of reps that we're going to do, but we're going to increase the load. Now, we have to take into consideration all of the other factors that we have going on. So when you write a program for any type of hybrid goal or any type of kind of, say, functional fitness goal where there's multiple components that you're training for, you need to take into consideration something called the interference effect. So the interference effect is the response that your body gets from certain types of training. When you train strength and you train any type of lifting, so resistance exercises where you're progressively overloading week to week, what's going to happen is you're going to stimulate what we call muscle protein synthesis. So this spike in muscle protein synthesis is going to promote getting stronger, promote muscle building, and that is going to help us ultimately build strength. Now, what happens when you do endurance work, like running or metabolic conditioning work, is you're going to spike something called AMPK. Now, what that does is that blunts the muscle building signal. So those two things interfering can start to have an effect on the response that you get. So if you're trying to maximize this as an athlete, then you want to take those things into consideration. 2 simple rules for this is after a strength session, you would like to try to have 18 hours before doing some sort of endurance work. And the reason is because we want that muscle protein synthesis to spike, which it will do. We want it to maintain for as long as we can. Now, when you spike and you stimulate muscle protein synthesis, spikes after about 4 hours, it holds to about 18 hours, and then it drops off after that at about 48 hours. So we're going to stimulate muscle protein synthesis multiple times a week. So when we write a strength program, we're going to be looking to hit the muscle groups twice in a week. The same goes for this, partly because of the muscle protein synthesis response, but then mainly because of the skill of the movement. You see, when we program this, we're going to have lower body session and upper body session. So lower A, upper body A. We'll then have our running midweek, and then we'll have lower B, upper A, and then running again on the weekend. Your second lower session is going to be focused around movements that are going to benefit your main lifts. So when it comes to ATHX, you have a strict press, you have back squats, and you have deadlifts. So your secondary movements are movements that aid those lifts. So when I do my lower session, I'm going to have back squat in there, and I'm going to have deadlifts in there. When I do my second lower session, I'm going to have some form of variation of a back squat. For me, I would advise when you do a hypertrophy phase, you want something which is going to mainly target the quads. So that is going to be movements that allow your knees to travel further forward, which are going to be things like safety bar squats, high bar back squats, front squats, pendulum squats, hack squats, anything which allows your knees to travel forward. From a deadlift perspective, it would come down to where your weaknesses is. I would always recommend having some form of Romanian deadlift or stiff leg deadlift as a secondary. I'm a big fan of stiff leg deadlifts from the floor, but I program Romanian deadlifts because most people will find that easier. It's a better position to get into and it's less injury risk. But there are multiple different deadlifts which can aid that. That's not necessarily for this video, but it's just so you can have an understanding of the structure. So let's give you a big picture overview of how it's going to work from a strength perspective, and then what we're going to do from a conditioning perspective, and go from there. So when you train for this, you want to give yourself enough time to peak. Peaking is basically the process of reducing volume. So intensity can go up, intensity being total weight on the bar. And we're trying to get ourselves ready and prepared for the lifts that we're going to have to do on the day. So you have a 4-week block where we peak you for for the competition, and we're trying to maximize and get the benefits and be really specific on what we're trying to hit. So weeks 1 to 4 is going to be a hypertrophy phase. We're going to build muscle. We're going to focus on movement quality, and we're going to focus on building up kind of our engine. So you're going to have more exercises in here. You're going to have more sets. You're going to be doing more reps. And that's to build up your total volume and build this strong base. If you think of everything we do as building a pyramid, and your hypertrophy phase is going to be the base of that pyramid. The bigger that base, the taller we can go. And the higher that we can go will be the bigger the weights that we can lift. So the first 4 weeks is going to be a hypertrophy phase. The second 4 weeks, so weeks 5 to 8, is going to be a strength phase. So this is where we turn that base that we've built and we try to maximize it and focus on the thing that we're really looking for with this competition, which is strength work. So I like our strength work for this block specifically. You're going to normally be between like 2 to 6 reps. And I'm a massive fan of programming things specifically. And we'll get on to why I do top sets and back offs later on in this video. And then your 9 to 12 weeks is going to be your peak. So this is where we reduce volume quite a lot because your fatigue is going to be high, because the intensity that you're working at is also going to be high. So training becomes more specific basically as you get closer to competition. So if you think you're further away from competition, doesn't need to be that specific. As we get closer, it needs to be more specific. Specific in this area, especially when it comes to strength, basically means if we are going to do a 1 rep max on our strict press on week 12, when we're peaking, when we go to competition, well, weeks 1, we can be around 10 to 12 reps because we don't need to be as specific, i.e. we don't need to be hitting 1 rep maxes out here. We need to build up the capacity to be able to do that later on. Building capacity allows you to lift heavier later on. So more volume, reduced down over the weeks, is going to allow you to lift heavier. We have something that I like to do with this, which is I work off of percentages. And the reason is because your percentages can guide the weights that you pick. So every time you do a test and you test your 8 rep max or a 5 rep max or a 3 rep max, what that's going to do is give you an estimated 1 rep max. Now that estimated 1 rep max is what our percentages are going to be based off of. So when you first get into training and you first start, you're not really going to know what your estimated 1 rep max are. Now there's multiple calculators. I'm going to chuck a little table up on the screen so you can see what that looks like as we go into something like 8 rep maxes, what the percentage of that's going to be, and then from there you can work out your 1 rep max. Now, every 4th week in this program, so if you think weeks 1 to 4 is hypertrophy, but on the 4th week we're going to do a test week. Now, in that test week, we basically remove all other exercises and we just focus on the strength test that we need to do. And the reason I like to do that is because that week then doubles up as also what I like to call a pseudo deload week. It's a deload week because you've reduced the volume loads. Intensity's high, but overall volumes come down. What I also do in those weeks is I reduce the number of sets and the number of training days. So you're going to simply have less training days to do, which means going to help with recovery, and you're going to have less volume to do, help with recovery, and it's going to allow you to produce and perform at your best because you're reducing overall fatigue. Yes, when you do the test, it's going to be quite intense, but it's not going to be that fatiguing. So weeks 4 is going to be a test week. Week 8 is going to be a test week, and then week 12 is where we taper for your final week. A taper is where you just reduce volume, just like we do in those normal deload weeks, but this time we have it strategically planned where the final week leading up to your competition. So if you think week 12, I'm on the Monday of week 12, and then the Saturday or Sunday is when I compete. Well, on that Monday, all I'm going to do is a simple technique session with my strength work where I'm practicing the moves that I have coming up on the weekend. On the Tuesday, I'm going to do a little bit of cardio, nice and steady, just to get me ready, and then I'm going to have 3 or 4 days rest just for the competition. The whole point of a taper is to reduce the fatigue so you can perform as well as you can. ATHX preparation is not just about getting fitter. The programs that we need to organize into like 3 different phases is so that you build the right qualities at the right times to build. So then as we test throughout the program, we're actually testing that is the phase that we've just done as the 4 weeks actually benefited us. And what should tend to happen is weeks 4, you'll do a test and you'll get a predicted 1 rep max. Week 8, you'll do a test and that predicted 1 rep max should go up. And then in this program, week 11, we're going to do another test, and that test is going to give us our estimated targets for the day that we have coming up on our ATHX session. If you think that's the bigger overview from a strength perspective, we have the 3 phases, weeks 1 to 4, weeks 5 to 8, and then weeks 9 to 12. Well, we then have our week itself, and the structure of that being lower 1, upper 1, and then lower 2, upper 2. So how does this work? So primary squat and primary deadlift is going to be on lower 1. So the competition relevant main lift. So you're going to want to hit specific movements on day 1, and that's going to be a key session. We're coming off of a weekend. We're going to have Sunday as a rest day, and we're going to come into a big lower body session because they're going to be some of the most fatiguing work that we're going to do in that day. So you're going to do a top set followed by a back off. Now, the top set is like the heaviest and most important set of the day, and it gives us this kind of clear target to aim for. A top set and a back off for me normally works as a top set being your first set of the day. You're going to warm up like normal. So warm up and then you're going to hit your top set. That's going to be lower reps normally than the sets 2 and 3 that follow. Your first set is about trying to hit that number. And that's the thing that we're going to push on week to week. Sets 2 and 3, however, are going to be purely about still trying to hit a number that's dictated and what's given to you from percentages, or that's going to be like lighter weight, or you can use it for technique work. So looking at that top set, we hit it, we film it, we look back through, where did I go wrong, what didn't work well within the lift, what can I improve on. Our upper day 1 is going to be bench press. So this is going to be just bench and an upper session, more of like a bodybuilding type session, where it's not going to be that intense, it's not going to be that difficult, and the goal of this one is to kind of lower intensity a little bit. So if you had a hard day on day 1, day 2 is not going to be that difficult. So lower the intensity, focus on bench press, because bench press is going to carry over to the overhead press. Again, you're going to have Wednesday, which is going to be a run. We're going to get into the cardio stuff later on. And then your Thursday session is going to be lower 2. This is where we do the secondary squat and secondary deadlift like I spoke about earlier. These variations are designed to help you with the weak points, basically. So any weak points within your lift, you want to pick secondary movements that are going to aid that. And then we have, on that day is our only double day. So it's another hard session, which is going to be your lower body strength work, which is going to be super low on that lower session. You've got literally your secondary, I would do 2 movements. One movement's going to be your secondary squat, the other movement's going to be your secondary deadlift, and then I would do some core work. And then you can either do your METCON work basically straight after, or you do your METCON work later in the day. So you split that session up. Your Friday session is going to be upper, and this one is where we're going to focus on our overhead press. And then our Saturday session is going to be our long, steady run. So our intense sessions throughout the week will always be Monday, going to be your primary squat and deadlift. Your second intense session is going to be a Wednesday, which will be interval running. Your third intense session is then going to be your Friday or your Thursday, which is your double session. Okay. And with our Friday, we're going to hit our upper body and we're going to hit some overhead press. I really want you to think about your week as basically having days which are hard and days which are easy, but I want you to think about everything adds to it. So the reason we have multiple days between doing lower session 1 and lower session 2 is because we need to recover. So you do lower session 1, we then have 2 days worth of recovery from our lower body, really. I know we're going to do some running in there, but then we go into our lower session 2. And those movements we pick in lower session 2 is basically to help the athlete and help you to kind of improve those first squats. So if you're someone who struggles at the bottom of the squat, having something like a paused squat is going to be really beneficial for you there. For athletes who have weak lower backs, your secondary deadlift wants to be a stiff leg deadlift, which is going to improve the strength of your lower back. So that's how the strength work would work throughout the week. This is now how I would break up those phases. So you now have your overall phases, you know what they're going to be. hypertrophy weeks 1 to 4, strength work weeks 5 to 8, and then peaking weeks 9 to 12. You now have your weekly structure. Monday is going to be lower 1, Tuesday is going to be upper 2, Wednesday is going to be interval running, Thursday is going to be your lower session 2, which is going to be secondary movements, and then you have your Friday session or day 5, which is going to be overhead press and upper body, and then Saturday is going to be a long steady state cardio, so your long run. That can also be switched for a bike if you need to reduce any type of impact on your joints. And then you have Sunday, which is a rest. Now you always want to have at least one whole day as a rest. How the strength and the numbers are going to progress throughout that is in phase 1. So in your hypertrophy phase, we're going to be pretty high with like sets of 8 to 10. In your strength phase, we're going to be sets of 2 to 5 reps. And then in your peaking block, you're going to have lower again, which is going to be between 1 to 3 reps or 1 to 5 reps, which is being really, really specific on what we're trying to do. So your hypertrophy phase goal is to build muscle. Your strength phase is the goal is to increase your intermuscular and intramuscular coordination. So every time you squat or every time you do a movement, the movement's a skill. And the strength increase that we get often comes from 2 places: an increase in muscle mass and an increase in skill proficiency. So being proficient at the movements, being good at the movement is going to increase strength, which is why when you first ever start training, the increase in strength that you get leads to increase in gains because you're improving the movement so much week to week, because you're just getting way more stable, and the ability to coordinate your muscles to contract together at the time that you need them to contract gets better week to week, which allows you to then add more load, which allows you to then progressively overload week to week, which allows you to then gain muscle. So your newbie gains that come from the start of training when you first start come because you get better at the movement, which allows you to get stronger at the movement. So our strength phase, the reason we go between that 2 to 5 rep range is because that rep range is going to challenge us to maintain good positions at a heavier load, so then we can increase our proficiency with the movement. It's going to challenge us to hold and maintain positions as we do the movement. And then your peaking phase is about getting you neurologically to be able to send the signal from your brain to your muscles. Because every time you contract and you contract your muscle, your brain sends a signal. The harder you contract or the heavier the weight that we have to lift, the bigger that signal needs to be and the more consistent that signal needs to be. So that peaking phase is about teaching your body to send signals as strongly as we need to in the correct order, in the correct way. So volume over these phases is going to come down, again, just to make sure that at the start we're higher volume, and as we get more and closer to the competition, we get more and more specific. Your strength work, basically, we now know where we're going to go on that. We're going to go from 8 to 10 reps weeks 1. We're going to build through weeks 1 to 4 doing 8 to 10 reps, and then we're going to go and do a test week on week 4. So we're going to do 8 rep maxes or something like that to test it. That's going to give us an estimated 1 rep max, and we're going to use that for our guidance percentages to go off of on the next 5 to 8 weeks. Those next 5 to 8 weeks, we do lower rep ranges between that 2 to 5. We do another 5 rep max test on week 8, and that's going to again give us an estimated 1 rep max. So over the course of the whole training block, we're going to go from 8 to 10 reps weeks 1 all the way down into like a 1 rep max or a 3 rep max on weeks 11 and 12. This progression is going to just allow you to do all of those things I said and to increase your strength and get you ready for the competition. Now, when it comes to the endurance work, what do we need to do? So ATHX fits in this really fun bracket, which is you're going to work really hard, but you need a really good aerobic base. So just like hypertrophy work builds the base for our strength pyramid, our aerobic work builds the strength for our endurance pyramid. So the bigger aerobic base you have, so the fitter you are, the longer you can train, the better recovery you'll have, and the harder you can work during interval sessions. So the way that we like to do things for the ATHX program, you want one session which is going to build up your aerobic base, and you want one session which is going to target your speed. And the reason is because your endurance section of the ATHX program for 2026 is a 1K run into a 1K row. It's 750 if you're doing the normal ATHX, and I think it's 500 if you're doing the light. Because in your endurance work, you've got 22 minutes worth of work to do, but you're going to be moving at 1K intervals or 1K blocks, you need to know where you're going to be running and the pace you want to be running at, right? So the longer run that we have on a weekend, this is about basically building up our volume and in general endurance and aerobic base. And then our interval session that we're going to have on a weekday, on a Wednesday, develop the speed, and it's going to help you to get more comfortable being at those faster paces. So both sessions matter because the long run gives you capacity to keep building work and to recover harder between sessions. And then the interval work is going to improve pace, your running economy, and your confidence when you're running at like higher paces. So one builds a base and the other one teaches the athlete the pace that you need to run at for the competition. So preparing for the endurance event itself, so because it combines running and rowing, some of the tests that we're going to do is going to be a 2K row test and it's going to be a 5K run test. So the 2K run test is going to guide your rowing splits for the day, and your 5K run test is going to guide your running splits for the day. So then when you come to competition, it's not just a thing of guessing what you're going to do. You know what you're going to hit. Now, zone 4 work is going to be what we're going to aim for. So as a guide, when you do the competition and you do 22-minute endurance event, you're going to want to run at a zone 4 pace, which is going to be around your 5K pace plus 10 to 15 seconds. Okay. I'm going to give you a full breakdown later on in the video of how to attack the day. So what you need to do on the day, how it's going to run, how to figure out what numbers you need to hit. I'm going to give you a full breakdown of that later on. But just know that the zone 4 is where we're going to spend a lot of time. So our interval work is mainly going to be around zone 4. And our targeted pace for the day is going to be ran off of that. Our 5K pace for our running plus 10 to 15 seconds. For rowing, it's going to be your 2K split plus 4 to 7 seconds per 500 meters. Okay, so if you think you have your 2K split, which is normally breaking up, say it's a 2 minute per 500K, and that's an 8 minutes for your 2K time. Well, on this, it'll be, you're going to go 2 minutes plus 4 to 7 seconds. Okay, so that gives you your guide. So we test this throughout the block. We test 5Ks and we test 2Ks throughout this training block. And you're also going to want to test like the sessions in sequence. So at some point you're going to want to test your 22-minute event just to see how you get on, because that's going to give you the confidence when you go into the day. So weeks 4, you're going to want to test your 5K and your 2K. But with the endurance work, I would get you to test it also on week 1, because then you know what your targets are again. When you're going for your zone 4 interval session, you know that you can use the numbers I gave earlier based on the 5K time that you tested in week 1, based on the 2K time that you also tested in week 1. So you're going to test it again in weeks 4, you're going to test it again in week 8, and then we're going to test it again probably the week before we go to our event, so we know exactly where we're at. So if you think the things that are getting tested throughout this whole period of time is going to be your back squats and your deadlift, it's going to be your overhead press, we're going to test your bench press out, and we're probably going to test your secondary lifts out. So whether that's a paused back squat or a high bar back squat or a safety bar back squat, and then any type of deadlift variation, whether that's a paused deadlift, whether that's a stiff leg deadlift or Romanian deadlift. Those are the strength components that are going to be tested. And then we're going to test the 5K run and the 2K row. Next, we're going to go on to is the METCON. I personally think that when it comes to training for ATHX, the biggest thing you need to be able to do is be good at the movements that you have. It makes no sense to train different movements during this period of time, in my opinion. You want to be really specific. You've got 12 weeks to get ready for a competition, be super specific, and anytime you do METCON work, you want to focus on that. So the way that I would split the METCON work is weeks 1 to 4, I would be doing 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for 12 to 16 minutes, and just cycling through different movements. So the movements for the day is ski, it's burpee box, it's burpee broad jumps, it's box jump overs, it's a sandbag carry, it's double dumbbell snatch or single arm dumbbell snatch, depending on what you're doing. It's going to be front rack elevated dumbbell lunges. Those are going to be things that you're going to want to practice the movements of, because they might not be things that you've done. And if you have done, you need to just get specific at doing them at the weight that's required. So weeks 1 to 4, you're going to do 30 on, 30 off to get good at that. Weeks after that, you're going to do 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off to again build up the amount of work that you're doing, reducing the amount of rest that you're doing to get you used to being able to perform the same intensity, so the same effort level and the same number of reps or even more reps in that period of time on less rest. So you're getting used to working at that high heart rate and being able to sustain that, because your heart rate's going to spike in the Metcon, and you just need to be able to sustain doing the movement and pushing through when your heart rate's really high. And then weeks 9 to 12, or kind of maybe weeks even 7 to 12, we want to get good at basically tiring yourself out and then not having rest between movements. Because if you're doing individuals, you're not really going to have rest. If you're not going to have rest, you're going to want to learn to pace yourself. And that's what this period of time is all about doing. You've now learned the movements, you've now learned the ability to work harder at a higher heart rate, and now we need the ability to pace ourselves correctly. And that's going to be what weeks 9 to 12 is. And that would be things which are a bit different. So if you think weeks 1 to 4 is going to be, say, a 16-minute EMOM of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Weeks 5 to 8 is going to be the same thing, 16-minute EMOM, but this time it's 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. We're going to get into things where we're working for 3 to 5 minutes, where you'll do a 2-minute ski, and then you'll go into straight away 30 seconds of burpee broad jumps, 30 seconds of front rack lunges, 30 seconds of box jumps, take 1 to 2 minutes rest, repeat it. And that is going to get you good at working at a high heart rate and learning how to pace yourself so you can move proficiently, and you know when you need to rest and when you need to push and how you can push, and you can learn where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are through this period of time. Now, the reason I put this on a double day is because you're not going to go into the Metcon fresh, which means that even if you do split the session throughout the day, so you have your strength work in the morning and you do your Metcon in the afternoon on that Thursday session, this is going to allow you to learn how to move on tired legs, basically, because you're never going to go into this fresh. You want to learn and improve the skills. You want to become more efficient at transitions between them and performing movements back to back. If you're in a pair, you want to learn who's good at what and who needs to take what load from the other person. So you might need to do more reps than I need to do on a certain movement. It's going to allow you, again, to focus on your pacing strategy. And for me, it's movement quality over everything that's going to then build up that endurance and build up that capacity that we need. So start with simpler combinations and just small amount of reps to improve quality. And then over time, improve the amount of work you're trying to get done in a certain phase of time. Like, the goal is not to destroy yourself in every Metcon. The goal is to get better at the movements, get better at moving between them, get better at pacing, get better at working at a high heart rate. So you now have an overall structure. You now know what you need to do, and you know that on weeks 4, on weeks 8, and weeks kind of 11, you're going to do a test to test your strength work. You're also going to be testing your endurance work by testing a 5K run and a 2K row. And you're going to use those paces to allow you to decide what pace you're going to do your endurance session at. You're going to have your Metcon to improve your skills, and that's going to improve kind of your conditioning through that 12-week period. And then when it comes to week 12, we're going to taper. We're going to have some movement practice at the start of the week. We're going to have some zone 2 steady state cardio just to kind of flush the legs out, get moving, and then we're going to have 3 to 4 days rest leading up to the competition. Now that brings us on to the competition day and what you need to do. So your competition day, I have created a PDF for you to be able to follow. PDF is in the description below, as well as a 12-week ATHX program. Now, if you only have 8 weeks to go, then you would just start later on in that program. But you can speak to a coach who can kind of guide you through all of that. So if you have watched this video and you still aren't really sure what to do, and you want to follow a program, well, we have a program below, so just click that link and join today. The competition day. So what you need to do, so you basically need to know what you're going to aim for from a lift perspective before you come into the day. You need to know what you're going to run at and row at before you come into the day. And you kind of need to know how you're going to split the Metcon up. So the way this works and the way the competition works is you have a warm-up zone for 30 minutes before you go into the strength. And that warm-up is going to be really specific to get you ready for what you're about to do in your strength components. So it's a 1 rep max strict press, it's a 3 rep max back squat, it's a 5 rep max deadlift, okay? Before you go into the warm-up area, because you're going to have 30 minutes in there, I would get you to complete any mobility work before you even go in there. So before you go into the warm-up area, do your mobility work. I would then, once you go in, they're going to explain how it's going to work. They're going to tell you, you're going to give you a 5-minute warning. You're going to have a period of time where you can run to the toilet if you need to. But as soon as you go in, it's going to be absolute chaos. So you might have to share with another athlete. If you're in a pair, then you should be able to grab a bar, find a rack, and just get to work. The order I would go in is warm your strict press up, warm your back squat up, and then warm your deadlift up. Some people you'll see doing other way around. I just think this is the best way to do it because your strict press is a 1 rep max, which means that you can almost send your strict press as much as possible because it's not going to be too fatiguing. And with a strict press, you can either lift it or you can't for a 1 rep max. So warm that up to around 80% of your 1 rep max. For your back squat, you're going to warm up to around 80% for 1 rep because you're going to target around 88% for your 3 rep max. So a 3 rep max back squat or a 3 rep max attempt of most lifts is going to be around 91%. For this, I would target around 87-88%, so you know you've got it. So in your warm-up area, you want to warm up to around 80% of your back squat for 1 rep. Your deadlift, however, you're going to want to warm up to around 60% of your 1 rep max. So the way I would do it when you warm up is you don't want to fatigue yourself. Like the goal here is to not waste energy. The goal here is to just get your body ready. So if you're going to do 4 warm-up sets, the way I would do it is set 1, say you're going to do overhead press, it'd be 8 reps with the bar. Set 2 is going to be 5 or 6 reps with a little bit of weight on. Set 3, 3 to 4 reps. And then any sets further on from there, you're just going to do 1 rep. Same thing applies to every other movement. So if you take me, for example, if I was going to do a 3 rep max back squat, I'd be looking around 210 kilos for 3 rep max. What I would do for my warm-ups is I would go 8 reps with the bar. I would go 6 reps with 60 kilos or 70 kilos. I would then go 4 reps with, say, from there 120 kilos. I would then do 1 rep all the way up until I hit my 80% mark. So for me, I want to be hitting around 180, maybe 190 in the warm-up area just for 1 rep. And I can take multiple sets to get up to there, but just know that after set 3, any sets from there that are warm-ups are just going to be 1 rep. Your first 3 sets are about warming your muscles in your body up. Your further sets are about getting your central nervous system ready to perform. So you don't need to do more sets than that. The way that I would do it is I would go in and put 80% on the bar and do your 1 rep, do 1 rep on your strict press, like secure a solid first lift. I would then jump pretty much straight to 90% and do another 1 rep and secure that lift. I would then take a good period of rest between that. 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and then do 95% for 1. And then you can basically take however much rest you want and just send the last one would basically be the way I would do it. Your back squat, you should be warm already. So the goal is now to just prime your nervous system. So 65 to 70% for 1 rep. I would then go 80% for 1, rest for your 2 to 3 minutes, and then hit your 3 rep max. Whenever you do this, you want to have the number in mind that you're going to hit, and you don't want to do more than that. You want to literally hit a number, and you don't want to try to attempt anything else, because you should have a estimated 3 rep max, 1 rep max, 5 rep max based upon what you've already done throughout the weeks. That estimated target is going to be what you use to kind of guide you on this. So for your 3 rep max, we're looking at 88% to 91%. So you should already have the number in mind you're going to hit, and you should only do that on the day. If you hit that and you go, I had loads left in the tank, great. You can use that on the run and you can use that in the METCON. Don't use that now. Get the number and don't fatigue yourself for later on throughout the day. Your deadlift, so basically it's more reps, which means the warm-up doesn't need to be as intense. I would basically practice moving in the movement pattern. I would practice priming your body for the working set, and then I would rest for 2 to 3 minutes and then hit your planned reps. So your deadlift, you're going to be looking at around 85% for a 5 rep max. So you want to be looking around between 82 and 86% is your targeted number of reps, is your targeted 5 rep max, which means when you do set 1, you can come in and do set of 5 at like 60, 65%. You could then do 1 rep at like 75%, 80%, just to make sure you feel okay. Rest 2 to 3 minutes, then hit your targeted number. Again, the goal is to hit a set and not fatigue yourself. Don't overshoot yourself because you will just ruin yourself for the rest of the day. Like, I watched Jasper do that. He did a top set. So my partner, he did a top set. He hit his number and then he was like, I've got more in me. But his next set was such a grind because he was fatigued from the 5 that he'd just done. So you need to take this into consideration. So your endurance, this should just feel like a solid strained workout. You're going to be in zone 4 the whole time. It's going to be around 80 to 90% of your max heart rate. And the way you're going to do it is your targeted pace for your run is going to be your 5K pace plus 10 to 15 seconds. So say you do a 5K and you do it at 4 minute kilometers, you do it 4 minutes per kilometer. Your target is going to be 4:10 or 4:15 per km. So I don't know what the set will be when you do it, but normally it'll be 250-meter loops. So you just need to figure out how far the loop is, and when you run round, it will tell you how far you're getting. Figure out what the loop is, and then figure out how often you need to hit the start line, and then you just need to figure that out based upon your pace. You can use different pace charts to be able to give you that. There'll be a PDF link below. And hold your pace and sustain it for the full 22 minutes, because you're going to split every 1K. Once you get onto the road, your targeted pace is going to be 2K plus 4 to 7 seconds. Now, know your splits and your targets before you even start. And I would build into it. So you're going to want to go into it slow for the first round and then build throughout your pace. You're going to want to stay in zone 4, and you can increase late if you want to, because then you get a good period of, like, I think it's 20 or 30 minutes rest after you do the endurance work before doing the METCON. You just don't want to go out too hot. So you want to go out a bit more conservative, know your paces, and just stick to the plan. So for the METCON, if you're doing it in pairs, you're just going to want to split the work as evenly as possible where you can. But if you have an athlete who is stronger in certain areas, just use that strength. Or if you've got an athlete who's weaker in certain areas, make up for it with your partner. So split the work as evenly as possible. But if someone is better at a movement, let them do it, and just start slower than you think. Because if you break it down in half and you go, once we get through the halfway point, we can up our pace if we've got it, then great. If not, you will just die and you'll be holding on for the whole time. So split it where you can and agree between you how many reps before you split. For individuals, just choose repeatable pace on the machine. So pick a pace, stick with it, and then decide how you're going to break the rep up for every movement. So each movement is going to be a different distance or a different amount of reps. You just need to figure out how you're going to split that. And then just know how many reps you're going to do before you take a rest, how long you're going to rest for, and then just avoid going crazy to failure, and just you want to be consistent as much as you can. A good plan that you follow is better than a perfect plan, and that PDF's below, so that's going to teach you what to do on the training day itself. Hopefully that video has helped. My name's Charlie, this is Hat the Body, Hat the Mind. Last year I came 9th in the ATHX Pro in the finals. I ran a 5:25 mile and squatted 525 pounds on the same day. A little nice hybrid challenge. It's 238 kilos. I competed at a powerlifting competition where I squatted 240, bench 145 and deadlifted 260, and then recently competed at a bodybuilding competition. My goal is to help people improve their confidence and improve how they feel through training and exercise, improve their mental health, and which is why it is Hat the Mind. If you want to join the community, then you can either sign up to the program below, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, or you can join our community through our training app. So the training app that we have has multiple different programs on, not just the ATHX program, but including that is only £20 a month. So if you want to join that, please do, please subscribe, and if this video has helped, please let me know, and please share it with a friend. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Charlie, this is Hat the Body, Hat the Mind. We will see you on the next one.